I think there are a lot of things going on in the world that shouldn't be, and it's common sense. If you have an inkling of morality, if you have an inkling of justice, we would not be suffering or watching other people suffer the way they are. And so for male educators, normalize emotional expression in the classroom.
Yeah.
That's it.
That was the voice of this week's guest, Jerome Hunter. Jerome is an educational strategist based in Seattle, Washington, who stands at the intersection of education, policy, community engagement, and young men and boys. This is Jerome's third time on the show, so you know that we're going to jump in really quick with conversation about education and young men and the work that we're doing. But beyond Jerome being a TED and NPR-featured educator, a community leader, Jerome is really caring about how we make room for learning in all different types, especially the way young men and boys are able to learn in their classrooms today. So today we discuss, 1, how Jerome works with architects in the community to design schools that promote flexibility and creativity. 2, why analog tools are making a comeback in schools and digital tools are being pulled back. 3, how digital technology erases productive struggle and interpersonal development. 4, some new research on how smartphones affect students, and a new article by Jonathan Haidt. So if you're ready for today's episode, take out your notes and let's start the show. Welcome back to school, and welcome to the 2025-2026 school year and this season of Unmasking with Male Educators. Please enjoy this back to school series where we'll be talking to students, some of our young men. We'll be talking to educators, men from all over the world, backgrounds and expertise, providing tips and techniques to start the school year. As you know, only 23% of K-12 educators in America are male, and male students face disproportionate levels of discipline on many levels. So let's come together and start the school year off with confidence and effectiveness. Look forward to you being with us this season. We'll see you soon. Jerome Hunter, welcome to Unmasking with Male Educators. I'm so glad to have you back on the show.
I'm happy to be back. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever seen Saturday Night Live, but if you've been on the show like 5 times, you like a velvet jacket. So
Okay.
I feel very privileged to be here and to be with you. And I do have to say, I want to put this out here that like, I wouldn't be doing the type of work that I'm doing today if it wasn't for you. Just learning about your work back in 2013, 14. And so to be here a third time with you to have this conversation is meaningful to me. And I probably can't put it all into words, but I just want to put that out there before we start, because like you've been an inspiration in my work for going on 12 years now. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother. After you do your intro, I'm going to tell you something, but I want to say thank you. That means a lot. And, this work sometimes can be thankless education work, right?
Yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
It's those moments like, gratitude. So thank you. And sometimes when I get stuck in comparing mode, which I try not to, but I do, right? Like, okay, you're in a different path. Can't compare yourself to that person's path, right? Like,
yeah,
it's just those moments. So, I appreciate it, man. And I think I'm thankful for you. I'm inspired by you. And since we started talking about the work with boys and the work we're doing and how I can support, right? I'm here trying to be a servant in the work. So, I'm excited about all these conversations we get to have and how we can help educators who are in it, in the day-to-day, in the grind, in the classroom, who are just like, why does it seem not to be working, right? And to help them see, just take a breath.
Absolutely.
We'll work with you to try and get through it. Stay the course, right? Until you're not meant to be on that course anymore. And then let's find you the next place that's going to utilize your talent, skill, and brilliance, So, yeah.
The course evolves.
So how about you tell us what you're up to, what you're doing? We're moving into this new school year. What are you up to?
Yeah, so I'm an education strategist. So I often will stand at the intersection of education and policy, education and community engagement, education and initiatives around supporting young boys and men. And so I've been able to work in those spaces for some time now. And, the through line of all of that work is really building empathy and belonging. And so currently I've been working with school districts in their initiatives to support boys and young men, and then also working with school districts in how they create physical space, because I believe that physical space intrinsically and extrinsically informs how students specifically engage with it. And so whenever a school is up for redesign, I'll come in and work with the contractors, architects, community members, and building administrators to come together to make sure that the space that they're building is reflective of the communities in which it's going to serve, and not only for today, but for tomorrow. So there's an element of cultural responsiveness, but also cultural sustainability. And so I find great joy in that. It's really humanizing, and it gets to the essence of education, just recognizing that it's an element of both, and it's absolutely academic, but it's also deeply personal. And so the space that students and families come into need to reflect that. And so I've been privileged to work in that space, and that's granted me opportunities to work in community and to amplify voices that are historically marginalized. And so really just being able to be involved in education strategy in those ways.
Before we jump into these masks, I mean, thank you for that work, because I think the space that schools occupy mean a lot, right? And I've been in some places that you're like, there ain't no way I would ever go to school here. And there's some places that I'm like, can I go back to school now? Can I go back? Like you've seen them. I've seen them both. And I imagine you have too. Definitely for those schools who are under the potential for redesign. It's like, what are some really exciting things you're seeing? And say like school is not under redesign, but there's some small things that they can try and do. What are some exciting things that you're seeing in space that either kids are asking for, parents are asking for, teachers are asking for, that's really exciting in this?
That's a great question. And I think a lot of it starts with the leadership, the building leadership or the district leadership. But what students and families are asking for are spaces that are flexible, whether it's having spaces that can be used not only as like community celebrations, but also maybe, for a lack of a better phrase, like maker spaces where students can have stations and work on specific projects. And the cool thing is that as these recommendations are coming in from families and students, the architects are like, oh, these are brilliant ideas. And so they're then taking in student family information and tweaking their blueprints. And so you might have something like a partition or a window that goes up. And so the space expands or contracts depending on what the school is wanting to do with the space. And that's really cool, because we talk about sustainability, and an element of sustainability is flexibility. And so if you can have flexible spaces, the space itself then becomes sustainable for evolving ideas or different ways to use the space. Because if it's just four walls and a handful of windows and desks and rows, it's really not promoting that creativity that we're asking students to exhibit on a regular basis. And so if the space itself is creative, even just from a visual standpoint, there's something that it communicates to the people in that space, like, oh, okay, I can be creative here, right? And it's that unspoken connection and that representation of creativity that can also weave into the engagement of the student. And so there's that, but also just from like a cultural representation standpoint, it's one thing to have like cultural representation on the walls, but it's also nice to have like cultural representation as humans from the community into the building. And so it's how do we find spaces that invite community members that reflect the identities of the students in a way that kind of shows them it shows them what the future could be and what they can become. And so it's been great because the conversations go much deeper than a blueprint or what type of structure structural material are we going to use. It's more like, how is this space going to make us feel? And so it's been really cool to do that. So that was a great question.
Should I make an assumption that there's no chalkboards in these new schools, right?
Yeah, it's there aren't. I remember when I was I just can't do it. Like when I was a teacher, I actually had chalkboards in my classroom, and I pleaded to the administrators, like, can we replace these at least with like whiteboards? And they did. But yeah, we're not seeing any chalkboards now, but we are seeing like a shift from heavy digital materials to more analog materials. And I think we've, as educators knows, if students engage in kind of analog activities, the information is downloaded a little more thoroughly mentally and the cognitively. And so, I think schools now are trying to balance the spaces with analog and digital because of this, emergence of this digital wave that's come and changed the way that students learn, teachers teach, and just how we take in information.
Yeah. And I mean, okay, so we're already in this talk about education. So, and maybe even the idea of not only the analog and digital, but you think about like you go into a grocery store and there's 7-8 registers that are self-serve, right? And so like the idea of like, oh, whether you like computers or not, you're gonna have to figure this out. And it may be taking one of your opportunities for future employment.
Yeah.
So your skill set is gonna have to improve because they're not gonna. There ain't no too many 15-year-olds working at McDonald's anymore. They got 3 kiosks who never call out sick, who never complain, who take the orders right every time, or at least compared to what the person touched. You touched it. I don't know what to say. You ordered the wrong fries. It ain't on me, right? And like, how many of them are not like catching on to the fact that even the places where they used to be able to get a little bit of a job or some kind of financial, fulfillment is now being taken away by these machines, right? As well, right?
Yeah, I think I don't even know if that registers with most students who are emerging into that kind of workforce space. But I think as adults, we see it's like, at the grocery store, we're bagging our own groceries. Sometimes they ask for a tip, which I don't understand. It's like, I just did all this. You guys should be like giving me a 20% discount here. But as far as students go, I don't know if they because it's moving so fast. I don't know if they recognize that what used to be job opportunities have now been absorbed by the technological advancements of today's world. And so it leads me back, though, to our humanity. I think even with the advancements of these technological advancements that are now replacing humans with robots, I think that there's even more value in making human connection. And I think there's an opportunity for students to get into a workforce that is more interpersonal. What that could look like is more leadership opportunities, whether it's like, I would say civic engagement. I would hope that, our public sector could open doors for students and opportunities in like community and civic engagement. Yeah. I think that there's more purpose. There could be more purpose in that. Not just, I used to work at Wendy's. That was my first job. And I found a lot of purpose in that, being a tax-paying citizen at 16 or whatever. But I'm hoping that the public and private sector recognize what you've just said, that, what were once employment opportunities have now been taken. So we need to replace them with different opportunities for students. And I think there's a rich opportunity to create spaces where students are exercising their interpersonal skills, whether it's, communicating with their colleagues or going out into the community and communicating with folks who live in their space. But I think there's an opportunity there. I think there's some thought that should be put into that, because those clerical jobs, the fast food jobs, are far and few between now.
Man,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna get off of this topic right now, but I also think about like how the technology is incentivizing you to not be interpersonal. The technology, the apps are saying, "Hey, just pre-order, just order.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
come in here. We don't want to have to talk to you. Like, just
Yeah.
come in, just pre-order. Know what you want. Put it in the system. We'll give you a couple of points. We're going to
Yeah.
incentivize you to not have to deal with us human to human. Just come in, grab everything off the counter, and get out. Right? I mean, you go to more places and places. There's no seats. There's just in and out. Right? It's like
Yeah.
it's almost like those layers of like the technology is. We need to be connected. We do
Yes.
need to be building those interpersonal skills.
Yep.
But I've seen many youngsters with their friends in the parking lot trying to order so they can get their points. Like, order it on the app so I get these points, right? And then, hey, it's a great incentive to get these points. And what are you losing? You're losing how do you order your food from a person?
Right.
How do you ask for what you want with words? And so how many layers do we subconsciously watch or even not even notice that are being erased for the chance to disconnect? You
Yeah.
know?
That I think that's a really good point that you bring up, and kind of the incentivized element to the digital engagement has essentially erased what educators call like desired difficulty, or the
Mm,
progressive, or the productive struggle, like that moment of like, this is really hard, but you need to kind of get through that hard part to learn, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah,
and the apps, whether it's you're ordering food, you're ordering shoes, you're ordering whatever, you get like a discount or you get a bonus point. Like, in addition to that digital engagement, you're getting dopamine. Like, you're getting rewarded for engaging in that way, where the productive struggle and the desired difficulty and the interpersonal in-person communication, you don't get that. You just get like this like feeling of uncertainty or unknown.
mm,
And the digital space erases that completely,
yeah,
not knowing that that also erases the development of resilience or
yeah,
flexibility or
yeah,
durability, right? Whereas,
yeah,
these interpersonal interactions that humans need, whether
yeah,
positive, neutral, or negative, all build a texture around you as a person, so you can be more, I guess, well-rounded
yeah.
and prepared for the challenges that come with being in the world that we're in today and the world that we'll be in tomorrow. So anyway, I'm going to hop off my soapbox there, but I do
No, it's
think that
not a
there's a
soapbox. But I think that's exactly what we're talking about. Like, imagine a young man in wherever they live who is finding it difficult to talk to if they're attracted to girls. It's hard to talk to girls, and on a regular basis, the way they're engaging with the world is through a device. So
Mhm.
when you walk up to someone and says, "Hi, how are you? What's your name?"
Yeah.
You haven't even practiced enough just going to the store and asking for, "Can I get this?" You don't have enough. You have enough practice. You have no practice with getting words out of your mouth. So
Yeah.
therefore, it's gonna feel even more awkward than it used to feel, even when that's all you had in the first place. So I wonder all the things we don't notice that we are watching in real
Yeah.
time, being the opportunities to connect, and even the structures for safe failure that, oh,
Yeah.
I said this wrong, oh, okay, how do I fix it, right? And
Right.
we're just losing. I think sometimes our young men are losing that.
I agree. I agree. And it essentially erodes our durability, right? And I think that we're not seeing it because it's a delayed response. But as, boys, men, humans get older, and then they're put in these environments where you have to, like, let's say, lead a team. You have to be a project leader, but you have to do it in person, but you haven't had the practice either in school or online to like take criticism or feedback, right? And so your responses to that aren't going to they're going to mirror your experience, which is like, oh, I could just turn this off, or I can swipe the other way, or whatever. Whereas you can't do that in a conference room, or you can't do that if you're kind of leading a team. You have to be able to show a sense of diplomacy. You have to show a sense
Mm,
of empathy. You have to listen actively. You have to also admit that you're wrong, right? All of those things
yeah.
that help you not only grow as a human, but like a leader,
Yeah.
and allows you to connect with others. And so we're at this kind of inflection point in education and in our society where like technology is eroding um, the durability of how we respond to things that we might not feel, things that we don't desire.
Yeah.
And I think there's an opportunity for schools and our society. Well, we're talking about education, but like schools to,
Yeah.
integrate things like experiential learning, where you're actually having these experiential opportunities that bolster interpersonal relationships and provide opportunities for a productive struggle. Like, what did you learn from that mistake? Or what did you learn from that
Mm,
outcome that you didn't think was going to happen? Like, it gives
yeah.
them time to like think critically too, right? And so there's an opportunity for that. And I think that I'm optimistic that we'll get there.
All right, so I get excited. You know, you and I know each other. So folks who have listened to the show who may not know you or me, so maybe just for the sake of, because we always talk about these masks, maybe, and then for us to just like drop in a deeper way. Like,
Yeah.
do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I'll let you lead this one.
I'll go first. Okay, so I'm just
Yeah.
gonna say, okay, here are the things I'm finding easier to talk about right now these days, and here's some things I'm finding harder to talk about these days. Of things I'm not not discussing as much about myself. So, and I was having a sharp time figuring out what to write on the paper. So I think what's happening right now. I think things I'm talking about a lot are. Like it was summer, like it was time for a rest. It was time
Yeah.
for making time for rest. I think I'm talking about the idea of of rest more, the concept, the theory, the the philosophy of rest, and the great quotes about rest. I'm talking a lot about rest. I'm talking about it. Um, I am right now. I'm really what I'm letting people see is just we have a big mission ahead of us. So I'm really like focused and driven to like get this. We're getting close to reaching 100,000 people through this movement, and it seemed like it's taking more to get to this last 14,000 than it did the first 80,000. Feels like So I'm feeling like this. What's happening? Why does it feel like it's moving so slow? And I've heard about these principles that it feels like the last 20% is harder than the first 80, right? So I know the philosophy, and now I'm feeling it. And I think the other thing that I'm showing a lot of is like that I'm getting wiser. I mean, I think I'm showing it, but in the sense that I should have learned some of these things a long time ago. I think, in my own judgment of myself, and I wish I had learned them earlier. And I'm learning myself about how to lead in this new season of the working world. And so I'm being more direct, using more candor. Like I think I used to tiptoe around people's feelings so much that I'm at work at 10 p.m. because I didn't tell somebody that the thing that they were putting together was not right. And then I'm the one here at dark, peeking out the door, making sure I can get out safely. Like what's going on with what's this? What's this picture? But I think that's what's happening. That's what I'm trying to show more of. And I think what I'll say on the back, the things I'm not talking about as much is more like pain, like physical pain that I've I have a high tolerance for pain, I think, which is sometimes dangerous because I can just be like, I'll deal with it
Mm-hmm.
later. I'll deal with it later. And then
Mm-hmm.
these pains turn into other things that just didn't get dealt with when they should have probably. So it's a benefit of having a high tolerance for pain and a danger of having a high
Yeah.
tolerance for pain. So I feel like some physical pains are happening. And I think just the reality of getting older, right? Like I think I yeah, it's the last 10 years. I went from not one gray at all to like almost salt, all salt, right? Like what is happening here? And it's like, oh my God. And I think I usually never even think about it much getting older but now I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it a lot more. So it's a thing that's happening in my mind, like, and then I'm not talking about it as
Yeah,
much, but it's happening. So that's what's real for me today.
I appreciate that, and it resonates with me. I think like what I've been talking about and like been front of mind for me is this idea and practice of equanimity and like balancing
Mm.
the challenges of life with also the joys of life. You know, it's interesting, and the reason that I guess practice and philosophies come to me is like oftentimes when I find myself doing something that's been like really joyful, somewhere in that is like I'm also dealing with like heavy stuff. And so it's like finding ways to not compartmentalize, but just honor the fact that something really good is happening right now,
Mm.
while sometimes simultaneously something really bad is happening. And so it's like, okay, this is life. This is stress. Stress is a part of life. How can we enjoy the experience? And so equanimity has been something that I've been really honing in on these past 5 or 6 months. Just, you know, because I think in the past, I've maybe operated almost as if I'm like holding it onto a pendulum, like
Mm.
swings. Oh, this is really good. And it's like, oh, then the shoe's going to drop and something bad's going to happen. And so, you know, and this applies to both like professional stuff and personal stuff. And so it's like really finding and keeping my footing in all of the spontaneity and joy of life. And so kind of, you know, you've heard the term like be where your feet are. So trying to be as present as possible. So that's one thing. Also like the work that I've been doing over the years with boys, men, and masculinity, I've been gravitating to this concept that I've been able to put words to. It's not my term, but it's like the work that I've been doing is this idea of inclusive masculinity.
Mm.
And it's kind of tied to what I just said. It's just like honoring the both and not operating from a binary. And so
Yeah.
when we talk about, you know, educating boys and men, recognizing that our lives are more complex to be boxed in like a stereotype or socialized into one way rather than the other. And so
Yeah.
it's important to recognize that you can be both and you can be very durable, but you can also be very sensitive. You can be very courageous, and you can also be very emotional, right? And I think too, you know, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine about the like the beauty of bravery, and we talk about bravery in boys and masculinity often, and it's celebrated. We see it in our superheroes, we see it in our movies, we see it in our, you know, our TV shows,
Yeah.
and it's like them taking this courageous step. But I think one thing that they miss, or one thing that isn't elevated enough to balance the celebration of bravery, is the fact that they had to overcome fear to do the thing, right? And so we need to recognize that like bravery as a whole is overcoming a fear and doing it anyway. And I think that we need to
Mm.
talk about that a little more. You know, all of that kind of embedded in inclusive masculinity. It's balancing the complexities of life. And then with all of that, sleep. Um, you and I both work a lot around the clock. You know, I totally resonated when you say you're you know, at the office 10 p.m. All we had to do was just say, you know what? Can you just redesign this or modify this? But we did it. So we're watching the sunset. Anyway, I relate, and so my thing now is sleep hygiene, and I'm not
Mm.
as good as I would love to be, but I need to like set boundaries around my sleep and set like a
Mm.
schedule, just like almost like an alarm,
Yeah.
an evening alarm to like go to sleep, so I can be present and ready and prepared for the following day. And so that's one thing. And I talk about that a lot. I'm hoping that I can talk it into existence. So we're not there yet, but we're getting there. What I'm not talking about is the world is overwhelming at the moment. And I think at my core, I'm an optimist and I have a deep belief in humanity, but I also can feel depressed at times with how the world is today. I think there are a lot of things going on in the world that shouldn't be, and it's common sense. If you have an inkling of morality, if you have an inkling of justice, we would not be, suffering or watching other people suffer the way they are. And so that I don't talk about it as how it impacts me as much as I maybe should, because it's a lot. Let's say another is I don't talk much about or haven't talked much about grief. And I think I talked, which is interesting because I think I brought this up in one of our other conversations, is that, I've had a lot of, I deal with a lot of grief in my kind of personal experience. And I think I need to work on talking about it more. But I think grief is a part of life. We all experience it on some level. And so I think doing it in a way that continues to heal, but also continues to, memorialize people that I've lost. And so I think finding ways to do that in a way that is holistic and healing. I think part of the reason that I don't is I'm not necessarily looking for anyone to do anything when I share. It's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's part of my growth journey. But I will say that this exercise that we do, that you have, is really meaningful, and I appreciate you holding space to be able to share this.
Thank you, brother. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing it. I recognize that, talking with other educators, I get excited and we jump into the work, right?
Yeah.
And I can easily just forget that we're in this conversation to talk about the fact that it's easy. It's always easier to talk about the work than it is to talk about the masks that we're wearing around the work, right? I think.
Yeah.
And I feel like I get caught up in it. I've done it many times in the show. Like, I'm so excited to talk to somebody that I'm just starting to, and I'm not trying to ask any, academic questions. I'm just connecting questions, but I am talking about the work, and I'm like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about our masks. I totally forgot about our opportunity to drop into a connection, and oh yeah, what are you doing, Ashanti? How did you do that? How are you doing that? How are you doing that in this conversation where you're supposed? And I then realize, oh, that's me too, because it's easy. It's not, maybe I don't say it's easier now. I'm used to talking about sometimes how I feel, but it's always the default is let's jump into the business. Let's jump into the work.
Right.
That's the default that has been programmed. And so I fall into it too. I'm like, oh wait, we're halfway in and we haven't talked about our masks yet, right? And so yeah, thank you for that.
Absolutely. And the truth is, like you said, beyond the technical aspect of the work, this is the actual work, right? And we can never forget as educators that we're engaged in it's a human development. It's beyond curricula, it's beyond strategy, policy, and we're interacting with humans. And so this is the real work, and it's not mutually exclusive from the other stuff.
I like that. So maybe as we think about educators this year, what are some things, I think in our last conversation we had to talk about smartphones and then kind of how you were seeing the things play out and where in the district you were at, and and when we've seen a lot more schools say, no, put them away. You can't have them out, right? Or you can't have them at all, right? So people are starting to pay attention, and it's still taking its time to take root, but it's happening. And then we think about like learning in a new day, right? A new day. We talked about the new design of new classrooms and new schools, and how do you make a room feel like it has more flexibility, as opposed to like, oh, here are the chairs in a row, teachers at the front, right? Like the same way schools have, and still many of them look, right? But as we get to change them, like to make them look different, than they did 100+ years ago, and we wonder why they seem not to be working so well, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as we enter into this new school year, I think it's important for districts and building leaders to have a clear vision and a commitment to that vision. And I would advocate, and I'll continue to advocate, like, if you can, eliminate smartphones, especially if you're elementary school, middle school. And I even think since our last conversation, there have been articles and research that shows that, you know, smartphones are detrimental to not only like the well-being of kids, it minimizes their ability to have a healthy sleeping pattern, which obviously we know how that shows up in the classroom. The smartphones can perpetuate bullying and those type of relationships that are unhealthy. And so I would advocate for no smartphones. I understand that, you know, students need to contact important people in their lives, like their parents, family members. You can get a phone that, like, what do they call them, like unintelligent phones or dumb phones or what? I'm okay with that. And I think if schools do that, they also have to take a closer look at their overall tech policy, because if they have like a one-to-one policy and students have access to their computer or a tablet, they can use it the same way. And so you've got to really have a clear understanding of why you would want to take away the smartphones and minimize the tech. And that's one kind of part of the equation. The other one is then you have to replace it with something that's going to provide that novelty, that dopamine, that, you know, all those chemicals that students get from being on their smartphones and their games and their computers. And my recommendation is, if schools have opportunities to integrate experiential learning through project-based learning, do that, because you can replace the elements of dopamine and novelty through those experiential learning activities to combat kind of what the students are used to getting from being on their phones all the time. And it also adds that texture of purpose, right? And so bringing in the community or going out into the community with a project that's meaningful, maybe to the school, the subject, or the student, or all three, you can do that in a way that engages the student on a more deeper level without having to sacrifice, you know, the skill building of a particular subject, math, science, language arts, social studies. And I recognize that takes some planning, but if there's a commitment that's shared by the district and or the school, you can do that and start to see some really positive inroads where students aren't really thinking about their phones as much. And Jonathan Haidt just released an article on The Atlantic, and he surveyed students, and you may have read it, where if given an opportunity, they would prefer to have like unstructured play, interpersonal, like in-person opportunities. And then the second would be structured, but still in person. And then the third would be digital, right? And so I think schools and families have an opportunity to honor that request. And I know it was a subset of students, but it's, from my own experience, if you create a space that's intentional for your desired outcomes as an educator, students can feel the commitment of the adults and they'll engage in it, but if you just take away the phones and it's just punitive, it won't work. so it's like, instead of phones, let's do this, right? And we're committed to your learning and your human development for these reasons, And then oftentimes students will get it. right? But you can't just take something away because then it would be a mutiny.
Yeah, and I think like even like what I've experienced with students in the phones, what I've seen. I'm on two of our youth leaders. We were on a thread with them and Ryan, and I remember like last week we were trying to get them. They were last episode of the podcast. So and their text patterns and habits almost, if I'm not careful, I think I could lose my mind. Like, so what they're doing is one person will say one thing, and then the onslaught of other messages that come back in like 3-word sentences are so massive. And I'm like, okay, first of all, how are you typing that fast? First, second of all, how are you thinking in these little tidbits? And then and the other 70%, other 30%, I don't know what they're talking about, right? So it's one, like, what do you talk? What does that mean? Two, what is happening in how you're flowing in this conversation? It's actually very entertaining, and it's ironic, entertaining, and sometimes it's like, oh my goodness, like I
Yes.
almost have to block you because
Yeah.
because the speed at which this banter is going back, that half of it I barely understand, and the other half is like, what's going on here? I thought we just asked what time are we meeting for lunch, and now we're in another dimension of conversations, and I still don't know what time I'm supposed to be meeting you. And
Yeah.
that's what I was at, because I asked the question, right? And then I realized, wait, this conversation it got all these subtexts,
Yes.
these subliminal messages.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just another world, right? And I recognize that I'm not of that world right now,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna keep
I
learning, right?
I hear you, and I think it's important to clock it and to learn about it. And I've seen the same thing, and it like the way that I read into it, and this is just kind of my old age, but it's like these like it's like microcognition. They understand like a little bit, and somewhere along the line, they've either been taught or have just kind of picked up that like doing something faster is synonymous with better. It's not like all of the time. And I think in education, there's an opportunity for us to say, hey, like if we slow down, we're going to extend your cognition and your ability to understand in a way that is deeper, more meaningful. But you know, there's an argument to be had. Like they're creating their own language, which is sophisticated. I get that, but I think there's an opportunity to just slow down, take a breath, answer Ashanti's question. What are we going to eat? What are we going to do? And then you guys can get back onto your communication thread. But faster is not always better.
But the power of watching it, like I've forced myself not to say anything. Like I want to like get in corrective mode, and I'm like, don't do it. Just let it play out. Just let it play out. Because it's an opportunity to observe. It's an opportunity to learn. I can't say what I'm learning. I'm definitely observing and trying to figure out what am I learning, right? So I think it's actually really powerful. And I think for adults who are raising teens or teaching teens, like to have a healthy conversation with teens where you're just observing them is so beautiful and critical to
Yes.
you understanding them more, right? Because I think sometimes they feel not understood, and rightfully so. Like what you're saying doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but I'm doing my best. You know what I'm saying?
I'm
Like I'm
doing my
trying.
best.
I'm
I'm doing my
trying.
best.
You know,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
can translate to me, please, that'll be really helpful right here. But I think it's beautiful, and if that they trust you, right? I think finding adults that they can trust and they can be in their own little world, and then they can be like, did you hear what I just said? I'm like, I heard it, but I don't know what it means. So
Yeah.
but out of a place of not of like judging, out of a place of like humor, laughter, and like you got to translate to the other people in the room, you know.
Yeah.
And that part is like, oh, okay, he don't know what we're talking about. Okay, and it's something they're happy about that. Something they're like, oh, we
Yeah.
still got our language decoded that they don't know what
Yeah.
we're saying, right? And then the other ones, right, where you're like, I think I need to know what you're talking about. Oh no, you don't need to know that part. Don't worry about that part. We'll
Yeah.
see you at 1:00. Okay. Thank you. That's what
Yeah.
I was asking from the beginning, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's the move, is where you just observe and you don't shame, because nobody responds well to shame. If anything, it pushes them further away.
Yeah.
And if they're open and willing to kind of let you in on what their communication patterns are, it's a win for you, right? Because it's like they trust you enough to give you some insight, and then you can start to make those connections. But it's a different world for sure.
Well, I don't know how our time always gets sucked in so quick. So let me ask you this: what word of encouragement, what word of advice, what word of awareness do you want to say to educators out there, especially male educators who are walking in classrooms today, tomorrow, over the next couple of weeks? Any words from you as a man who's been doing this work for so many years, like just a word of encouragement as we jump into this year? Maybe it's to the young men, I don't know, but what word would you close out here with? I don't know how we lost our time so quick, but it's always good to be in a conversation with you. And so
I would say it's more than a word. That's probably why we lost so much time. It's for male educators, normalize emotional expression in the classroom. That's it. It's hard. And I would also encourage them to model it. And so if you model it, it becomes reciprocal. And, you do that, you build relationships. And then if you are someone who's committed to building academic stamina, it's all connected. So if you can get that emotional expression embedded in your classroom or in the building, it builds relationships and it builds academic performance.
Let's go. Jerome Hunter, time is always too fast. We're gonna start doing one of these long podcasts where we just sit and talk for hours. I don't know. I'm trying to cram it into an hour. It never is enough, but it's always grateful. I'm always thankful to talk to you. Thank you for being on the show.
It's always a pleasure, and it was a privilege. And I look forward to being on again so I can get that velvet jacket.
We you know what, you've now inspired me to have to do something. I don't know. Now it's now what we're gonna do? We're gonna create something. I got some ideas.
Okay.
What's your favorite color?
It's green.
Oh, green.
It might be the green behind you there.
Come on now, you don't get me excited about green. You know, green is my color, so I got something coming for you. Don't worry.
Appreciate you, brother.
I got something coming for you. Jerome Hunter, so glad to have you, folks. Jerome and I, we shared our masks here publicly. You can share yours anonymously at millionmask.org. We look forward to you telling somebody about this episode, any educators, teachers, young people you know who could benefit from this conversation. Let them know. And we'll see you next time on Unmasking with Male Educators. See you soon. Bye, Jerome. See you.